The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast. Hello there, and welcome to The Force of Others. I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
I'm Matt Beutner.
And we're back with another big episode, episode 15. We have a wonderful guest at the end of the podcast. Sawyeurism is going to join us and give us their take on the Star Wars universe and some of their favorite moments and heroes. And we have a ton of Skeleton Crew news and other news. But the first thing we're going to get into this week is actually the Skeleton Crew trailer. We're going to cut this if this doesn't work, but we're going to attempt to try and watch the trailer with you all here on YouTube. So let's see if this works. If not, we will go into our reactions right after.
What are you in for? What are you in for?
I found something buried in the woods.
Dad.
This is unacceptable. Do you understand?
What do you think it is? Don't touch anything.
I love that the ship is upside down.
Yes. I'll never get over ships going to hyperspace, man. It's the best thing.
Yeah. And Smee is already there.
Yep,
Stay
yes.
together. We just need some directions home.
Come on, kid. Pay up. Whoa. Where'd you two find an old Republic credit?
Over here, quick. I'll get you home. We'll make a partnership. But we have to move fast. I need you to take the controls.
Okay.
Neil?
Neil?
A crew of murderous pirates is coming.
You think it's his crew?
I do.
They're
I
not
really,
going
really
to
do.
just turn up. We need to find them.
We're not alone down here.
Yeah. Monsters, always.
Pirates.
I wonder if that's a Borg gullet.
Mountains where none dare to go.
Good call. What if it's a giant Borg gullet?
Don't give up. No matter what.
Oh.
Skeleton Crew hype begins now.
You.
Okay, so, Zach, thoughts on the Skeleton Crew new trailer that we just got?
I mean, my hype was pretty high for this, but now it's even higher. I mean, to get where she going, but in Star
Huttese.
Wars, yeah, in Huttese, like
It's the
best. I think it looks so good. I am so curious what Jad Nawood is. You know, I don't think he's Hook. I think he's Long John Silver.
Okay, explain.
I think he was the cook or the first mate of whatever
Okay,
treasure they're going for.
Okay.
And he is like, okay, cool, I know where it is because I was on the ship. You know, come help me. I'm going to borrow your ship. We're going to go there. Because if you look at that still that they like first see the treasure room, he's just like leaning back on the door, like kind of
He's very
shady.
comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm just like
that's the turn, you know.
if you don't know what we're talking about with Zach talking about Jad Nanawood, Jude Law's character potentially being Captain Hook, that was speculation that I dropped on the show way back in I think like episode 2 with just I saw SM-33 being the name of the droid, the skeletal droid that they find on the ship, and that I was like, okay, so Smee, and if you have Smee, you need a Hook. And yeah, but yeah, exactly. He is also Long John Silver. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man. I absolutely loved this trailer. It's so great. It's awesome. They've said since the beginning, this is 80s kids on bikes in Star Wars.
So let's get the best 80s song around. And
let's do 80s kids on bikes. Let's get 80s music. This is Stranger Things without the upside down. It's Stranger Things in Star Wars. And just everything we're seeing is so on brand with that. And that this is, I just forgot the two directors, but that it's the same guys that
John Watts and Christopher Ford.
John Watts and Christopher Ford. I was going to say, I just saw their names in the trailer and I couldn't even remember. But that they are making a name for themselves in the last 7 years or so. First they did it with Spider-Man. Now they're doing it with Star Wars. It's what if John Hughes made a piece of this franchise?
John Hughes?
John
Watts.
What if the guy that John who? John Watts. But what if the guy that made the movies that they saw when they were kids? What if he came back and was making the other movies that I guess they saw when they were kids? I just think it's just so fun. I'm here for it. This trailer, I had made my peace with Star Wars Suburbs, right? Like everybody, I had a take, which the take was, we have never seen anything that pure Earth in any Star Wars property ever to this point. So why? But then again, just seeing that it's because they're going full 80s. It's kids trying to escape their normal lives, and then it's a Wizard of Oz thing, right? Wim is going to want something. The adventure that he's looking for is probably going to be revealed as at his home all along.
Yeah.
Right? He had what he always wanted. He did not need to go over the rainbow to get what it was that he always wanted. There's no place like home. And I still think that the catalyst for that, like we've talked about now, is going to be Jude Law turning heel on a quest for pirate treasure. This show is, I'm here.
I love that Fern, I think is the character's name. She's so Han Solo, so what you in here for?
What are you? And I love that they're sitting in middle school detention, but they're like, what are you in for?
Yeah.
It's so great. I love it so much. Well, and what are you in for? And that she's the bad kid. I think there was an interview on StarWars.com that revealed that her mom is the proctor or the principal that they're about to go talk to. So it's very much like, I don't want to have your life, Mom. I'm going to go race my hoverbike on the highway.
Yeah.
You can't put me in detention. I don't know. Anyway. But no, I loved everything about it. So go ahead.
No, just other speculation,
oh yes.
I love that, the laser trap, which is so Goonies, where it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't affect them because it's made for adults and they're kids, they're at the perfect height where it just, I love the octopus monster, whatever that is.
Yes.
Could be a Borgullet, could be Borgullet.
Well, and in the trailer, there's a giant. In the teaser, there was a giant, trash crab monster walking around on the surface level. So I wonder if this is the same planet. Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder if we're finally gonna get Nar Shaddaa.
Maybe. Wouldn't that be wild? If we
to get it in a kid's skeleton.
Talking about a couple weeks ago that why wasn't it on Acolyte, man? They had concept art and then it shows up on Skeleton Crew. That would be kind of perfect though.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah, and who would be the most terrified of the pirate planet? It's kids.
Yeah.
That sounds great. But I would wager they're going to do new things.
Yeah. I also just, I was looking at the cast and the characters, and I putting two and two together. Have you ever watched Black Sails? Are you a big piratey person?
Within reason. I think I saw some of it. That is the Taika Waititi
comedy
pirate show, right?
No, that's Our Flag Means Death. That's great. Black Sails was a Starz, Game of Thrones style before Game of Thrones pirate show.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's about Captain Flint finding the treasure that he buries in Treasure Island. And him first meeting Long John Silver and all that. But it also meshes it with pirate history. And I just put 2 and 2 together because, viewer, if you have not seen a picture of me, I look like a pirate half the time.
What a humble brag. If you haven't seen me, I look like a pirate. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Dirty. No, I'm kidding. But the character that we got from Mando, his name's Vane. And there's a very famous pirate who is a very big part of Black Sails named Charles Vane. So there's going to be little piratey Easter eggs, I think, all over this show, which I'm just so excited about.
I was just thinking, I was wondering what, oh my gosh, I forgot his real name, Steve Urkel. What his pirate name is going to be.
Right now it says Gunter, according to Google, but...
That's probably right. Well, there you go. That's not a piratey connection at all, but it's a cool name, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, right on. So, other speculation. So, I don't know if I've said this on the show yet, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but there was a while where I thought that the ship that they were going to find was going to be a ship from the Katana Fleet, which is a deep-cut Legends reference that is from the original Thrawn trilogy of novels. We've talked a lot about on the show about how we think, really not just we think, this era of Star Wars canon is very much just kind of the canon retelling of those Thrawn novels. You've got Mount Tantus showing up on Bad Batch. I mean, you've got Thrawn himself showing up on Ahsoka and all of those types of things. But one of the major elements of the Thrawn trilogy was he finds a legendary long-lost fleet called the Katana Fleet, where you can run this whole fleet of ships on minimal crew because they're designed to, link up together.
Cool.
So that the New Republic is this is bad, because he could have a fraction of the personnel necessary to for this fleet to function. I thought that's what they were going to do with Rise of Skywalker. They kind of did, kind of not really, but it was what it was. But I wondered if the ship that it was leaked in a Lego set. It's being called the Onyx Cinder, I believe, is the name of that ship. I was wondering if that was what it was going to be, but really, I just think it's just an ancient ship that has a treasure map. And so it's now the kids trying to get to the treasure, and Jod Wood is going to. I think he's really after that treasure.
Oh, for sure.
So
he looks so shady in that. I mean, it's just a second when he's in that treasure room, but he's it's heel turn. There we go.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that the Old Republic gold coins that they're called out of. Where'd you find Old Republic coins? Now, I've seen it said that people think that means...
Also, that alien was so cool. The one that's where'd you find Old Republic? He's a big crab man,
Yeah. Maybe that is all the same planet, and maybe that is a child of the giant crab monster.
Maybe.
Probably
Maybe
not. It's ridiculous, but I had to say it. Oh, my God. It turns out he's like Grogu.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. I've heard it speculated, that those coins are not Galactic Republic, like from the Clone Wars and the prequels from that era, that it's actually old Republic.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's the case, only because Obi-Wan calls the Galactic Republic from the prequels the Old Republic in Star Wars Episode 4.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's going to be what it is. But I don't know. It would be fun if this was the first mention of the Old Republic on screen in canon. Yeah. Or really I think about it on screen kind of.
What are those, Revan coins?
Can you imagine the level of joy and rage bait that would just descend upon the internet like a plague?
Yeah.
If that's how he gets mentioned, or that's how they get mentioned, I guess, for the first time in canon.
Yeah.
Revan. But there was something else I was gonna say. I got nothing right now. I'll remember it later. But
Neil
there was another
makes
piece
me
of...
so happy just to
the
practical ears, the
they have said he's a mix of CGI.
Yeah.
That there's some CGI involved. But that was funny. That was my only slight negative, was that we've now seen... I love Neil. I love the look. I love the idea. I love the voice. I think it's hilarious. It was not what I expected at all. That it's his cute little kid voice. But
Neil?
that, yeah. But I'm not a big fan that you can't see when he's talking.
Mm.
And so it's this disembodied voice that comes out of nowhere. It reminds me of the first Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. It's part of why they would take the damn mask off him as in every final fight. Because it's this weird thing where he's like, no, you can't do it. And you're just like, is he talking? I can't tell. And it's like kind of obvious that it's ADR.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's my one whiny negative is that it's going to take
He's got a big
some...
trunk in the way of his mouth, man.
Oh, I get it. And it might, for all we know, it might be way clearer on the show. This could just be a case of editing.
Yeah.
Right? Where the 2 times we've seen him speak in these trailers just happen to be shots of Neil looking cute. And then he'll talk and it'll be flapping around or something. Yeah. But anyway, okay, yes, that's our thoughts on the Skeleton Crew trailer. You got anything else to say?
No, but we got more Skeleton Crew news from Empire Magazine.
Take it away.
The first bit of news is that Skeleton Crew will bring back the Teak from the Ewok movie The Battle for Endor.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch this movie?
So there are 2 Ewok movies. There's The Battle for Endor and there's The Caravan of Courage. I have seen one time as a very, very, very young kid. And it's whatever one has a witch. I don't know. But I have virtually no memory of it outside of being a young kid and going, I don't like this.
Yeah, I have not seen them, but I've seen pictures of them.
The Teak is a weird looking thing.
Yeah. David Lowery revealed that the Teak, the super speedy Endor natives, will be making a comeback in his episodes. And yes, they'll be conjured with practical effects, which is my top takeaway from this. Practical effects, yes. He said, quote, I was most excited about having hand puppets on set. It's the most ancient technology being used with the most cutting-edge technology simultaneously. The combination was absolutely magical. There's a character in my episode that's ... the Teak from Battle for Endor, and it's just a little hand puppet. And then he wiggles his hand. I was like, is he going to get digitally touched up or replaced? Nope. In the final episode, it's just a hand puppet in the middle of this crazy volume set. The cognitive dissonance of seeing those 2 things together live in front of you, and it's absolutely incredible.
That's awesome.
So good.
I love that.
That's exactly what I want.
I love that. I'm here for forever, for the rest of my entertainment consuming life. I'm here for a mix of the practical and the CGI. There was a while where everybody liked to crap on the CGI, just using that technology at all. That still comes up from time to time. But use the happy mix, man.
Yeah, especially because they're filming largely on the volume. So, to throw in some practical stuff in there, you need it, you know?
Yeah. And the show looks great.
It does.
It really, really
It doesn't look like the volume that we've seen either.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I'm wondering, I mean, this goes for anything in life, creative or non-creative. You know how to do something after you've already done it. Mm-hmm. So I think that could be a little bit of what's going on there.
And I think Andor really helped with that too. They were like, okay, we did full practical
I don't think they used the volume. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, they didn't use the volume at all for Andor, and so it's like, hey, that really, really did well, and it looked really good. Let's see if we can mix more of that in. Yeah,
it could very well be. Well, I mean, and they've had a mix on the Mandalorian, but that show, they were really figuring out how it works. Because Ahsoka, I thought, looked real good. I don't know that there were actually any times on that show that I was like, this is volume, you can tell. It's bad. I don't know what that voice was. Anyway.
That's Matt's little critic voice.
Yes, that's how I protect myself from anything. I don't know. Anyway.
The other Empire news that we got was a huge article, actually, about how John Watts and Christopher Ford picked their director set for this show. John Watts directs two of the episodes, but they got Bryce Dallas Howard, Jake Schreier, David Lowery, Lee Isaac Chung, and it kind of goes into, a little bit of how they pitched it. David Lowery said John pitched it as kids lost in Star Kids Lost in the Star Wars universe, and there's a bunch of pirates. I was like, cool, I just finished a Peter Pan movie. I'm in the pirate world. And then they were like, there's a robot named Smee. And I was like, oh, or SM33. And I was like, oh, Smee, that's very Peter Pan. And then they said, Jude Law is going to star. And I was like, oh, I think I just made this. To do it again in Star Wars was a dream come true. Bryce Dallas Howard talks about how she's known Ford and Watts for over 20 years. Watts has a playbill from the first thing she directed in college, so they go way back. Schreier talks about knowing them in freshman year at NYU. You had to do a semester of sound work, and John and Ford's sound project was a pirate radio drama. So they've been working on this for a very long time.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's like, and then, Lee Isaac Chung was working on The Mandalorian, and they got him in on it, and he's like, they showed me some art, which I don't think I was supposed to be seeing. Watts said, I probably was breaking an NDA. But, yeah, and, they go on more. It's a big article, but... it seems like they've all kind of know each other and enjoy working together, and it seems like a big happy directing family.
Yeah. The only thing that reached me about this article, because spoilers, I didn't get to read it, I forgot. But was all the directors were like listing their bona fides, blah 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 blah, and then Bryce Dallas Howard was, I'm Ron Howard's kid. Like George Lucas is my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my bona fides here.
Also, I've directed a lot of Star Wars now.
Also, yeah.
Also, I'm Yaddle.
Say it. We got bleeps. I watched you debate. I was like, hey, nah, man. Shout out Nate Early. Make him work more. Appreciate everything you do. Please don't mess things up. Whatever. Edit that out. That got weird. Anyway, so... yeah, no, I again, I'm more hyped for this show. It seems like you hear about all kinds of terrible rumors about Lucasfilm and whatever and nonsense, and most of it's nonsense, in my opinion, because every time these people get to talk about working there and who they get to talk with, seems pretty
happy.
damn positive,
yeah.
And like joyful and stuff. So whatever, keep trying to sell your rage bait, guys. But I think things are pretty okay at Lucasfilm. But anyway, there you go.
All right.
Any other takeaways from these articles?
No, I thought it just seems like it's going to be a good time, and when people are having a good time, the show ends up being a good time as well. So
right on.
Seems very positive and exciting, and I love how steeped into pirate lore the showrunners are. So
yeah,
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I didn't realize really before this episode, that pirates are big for you, man. They're your thing.
Yeah, if you want to see me as a basically a Star Wars pirate, check out my Instagram. We did Time Travelers Weekend at Ren Fair this year, and I 3D printed a robot Star Wars hand, and then put together a space pirate outfit. I like pirates.
It's cool. Hey man, pirates and Star Wars. We're here for this. It's gonna be great. Skeleton Crew premieres a month from yesterday at the time of recording. So let the hype train begin now, baby.
Choo choo.
This is the nonchalant choo choo.
Choo choo. Chut chut.
Awesome. Chut chut, Watto. Well, so now for some slightly, potentially, to many, less positive news. Zach, hit us with this next one.
Yeah, according to Variety, the Star Wars movie with Daisy Ridley loses screenwriter Stephen Knight, which was the new Jedi Order film. I didn't get to fully read this, but look like, creative differences. What are your takes on this, Matt?
Well, and I mean, so this is by the time this comes out, this will be a couple weeks old news, but I wanted to comment on this because it went everywhere. And as, influential members of the Star Wars media, we should lend our voices to this, okay? I'm joking. So my takeaway from this is that Well, it's twofold, right? You can do kind of the popular thing on the internet right now and go against what we just talked about with all the joy coming out of the Skeleton Crew interviews. And you can talk about how, well, a lot of people will be announced as involved in a Star Wars thing, only to then announce they are no longer involved in a Star Wars thing. And so that seems weird. And you could look at this movie in particular. This is, I believe, the second screenwriter to depart the project. The first was Damon Lindelof.
Yeah.
If rumors are true, and the Damon Lindelof quote was, it was something, I'm going to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of, once you see how the thing that you love is made, sometimes you're less in love with it. It was something like that, which is just a way of creative differences. Yeah. I thought that was kind of an unnecessarily crummy quote on his part, but I don't know his experience. Who knows?
Right.
The rumor that went everywhere about the Lindelof version of Daisy Ridley's new Jedi Order film was that the character of Rey was going to be 60 years old. We would have jumped a very long way. And to me, yes, good move to not continue forward with that story. Daisy Ridley exists, right, as the right age to continue playing the character. You have an opportunity to do what you can't with the leads of the original trilogy, right? Yeah. Because the actors are still around, and at least in Daisy's case, still willing to participate. So they should absolutely be continuing her story. And there are people that love Rey, right? So you should continue to have Rey look like Rey, in my opinion. But all that to say, so there is that side of it of like, yeah, they're losing lots of people. There's the other side that had the internet existed in the 80s, we would have been hearing about all kinds of stuff about the production of every famous movie ever. And there would have been just as many articles about, they're losing people left and right. You know, what a nightmare. It's falling apart. George Lucas should not be in charge of Lucasfilm anymore.
For some reason, all those headlines are read by Harrison Ford. They're losing people left and right.
Yeah, they're losing. George, you shouldn't be in charge anymore. Okay. You can write this, but you can't say it. All right, anyway. So that's my long, drawn-out take, is this is, you haven't, right now, in the news cycle on the internet, if you can have a negative title about negative Star Wars news, it is going to explode.
Yeah.
And so I think, because the other side of it, Stephen Knight's working on his Peaky Blinders thing.
Yeah.
He's busy. I believe it's a movie.
It is.
And
great show.
Yeah, again, Daisy Ridley's film was announced before the entertainment strike at Star Wars Celebration 2023, right?
Yeah.
So they announced it, and almost immediately after, the entertainment industry shut down for 8 months. We don't know what the process was. Stephen Knight he was not allowed, 100%, with the way the unions work, to keep writing at the time. I don't know when he got involved in the project, but they had to stop all work on that project for most of those 8 months. So it could have been that he signed on and was like, what? Okay. And then the timetable gets tight. He's like, I need to go do my movie.
Yeah.
So sorry, I'm off. I have made my draft. I'm going to go do other things. Right?
Well, and yeah, I mean, these movies see tons of writers too. You know, like, it's not, I don't think it's a bad news for the movie, you know?
I think it would only become a problem if it was a situation like Captain Marvel, where, and I like a lot of that movie, but you can tell there's a reason that when they're in the credits and then the story by and written by shows up and there's like 12 names because so many writers came onto and off of that project. To me, that movie feels like there were a lot of different people that worked on this thing, and there was not a lot of consensus as to what this movie was going to be.
Yeah,
in my opinion, there's people that love that movie, more power to them. To me, it was messy, and I think that is the downside. If we, and that's what people will say. If New Jedi Order comes out and it's not very coherent, and that's like a wide-ranging thing, not that I think they're going to make a terrible movie, but if it isn't, if it's not a smooth journey, there will be people that'll be saying, well, they had too many screenwriters.
Well, this just in, Rian Johnson's actually going to write it.
Can you imagine?
Joking.
Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting. So you brought him up, so I'm gonna keep talking about him for a moment. Yeah, that would light the internet on fire. But bring Rian Johnson back to work on characters completely unrelated to anything that we have seen. That guy is at his best with something like Knives Out, where there is no preconceived notions outside of the genre that he's working on or character that's already known and has been known for 30 years, right? You're not coming in with any baggage. You're just watching a movie, right? In many ways, I'm very excited to see about what James Mangold is going to do with the Dawn of the Jedi movie, but it could have been interesting to have Rian Johnson be that guy. So, but you got anything else to say on what we just talked about?
No. But speaking of James Mangold, that brings us into our next news, which is the Dawn of the Jedi should hopefully be out Christmas of 2026. According to Empire Magazine, Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi is set to start filming soon. In an interview promoting his new Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, starring the Timothy Chalamet, Mangold mentions that after wrapping up work on that project, which is already getting Oscar attention, he will begin shooting the new Star Wars movie, which means that this thing is written, it is ready to go, it is happening, it is about to start filming, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And Mangold has been attached to many different Star Wars projects over the years. If you don't know who James Mangold is, not only is he directing this Bob Dylan pick, but he did, The Wolverine, he did Logan. He's steeped in the nerddom. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what the first Jedi look like. And the cool thing is it's so far in the past that even if it's completely different, you could be like, okay, well, it's been hundreds of years since then. The Jedi, found their way or didn't find their way, or, it could be completely different. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Well, real quick to bounce off of what you just said, my hope is that it is borderline unrecognizable. I've talked about before how one of my whiny criticisms of all of the KOTOR stuff is that the technology is exactly the same as it is, 2,000 years later? Yeah. In, the original trilogy era, and that just doesn't really make sense to me. It was something that I really loved about the High Republic, was that early in those books, they talk about how it's kind of a new thing, that the Outer Rim is being, explored and, kind of welcomed into the Republic as much as they can in some ways. I think Porter Engle is a random Star Wars canon shout-out of the day. Yeah. The Jedi Porter Engle talks about how, it's a new thing. So I would hope that it is, I think it'll be unrecognizable because James Mangold has talked about how it's like a biblical epic in the vein of, Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments and stuff. So I'm here for, a Star Wars Bible story type thing. But yeah, no, my takeaway from this is fantastic news. Do not rush it. Fantastic news. Don't rush it. We've talked about before. It's the only clickbaity negative thing, in my opinion, that I have ever done. Where I titled that one short on YouTube and on TikTok that is Disney repeating their Solo mistake? But it's are they? Right now, Mando and Grogu is slated to come out within a couple weeks of Avengers Doomsday, which I truly do not understand that thought process. It's just like Solo and Endgame. Don't do the thing here where have it be just like Solo and The Last Jedi, where Dawn of the Jedi comes out 6 months after Mando and Grogu. Yeah.
Mando and Grogu, is that 26?
Summer 2026. So if Dawn of the Jedi is Christmas 2026, don't get me wrong. The other side of it is we as a Star Wars fan nation are living deep in the Star Wars drought. As of this Christmas, it will have been 5 years since we have had a live-action Star Wars release. Or a movie release, right? What? Now, come on, we'll deal. It was 10 years between Force Awakens and before that, Star Wars Episode 3. Yeah. So, we'll be fine. We're getting content. But at the same time,
we're getting live-action content.
And we're getting live-action content. But at the same time, I would love to have a Star Wars movie every year like they originally thought, but I would also love for them to do whatever they need to do to take however much time they need to get it right. I know that's not realistic in the business of it all. When you spend money on these things, these monster companies expect return. I'm not trying to villainize them. I'm trying to say that's the reality. But we just talked about last week at our Halloween Spectacular, we brought up the reshoots of Rogue One and how that was such a clickbaity story in the release to Rogue One, only to have the movie come out and
everybody be like, that's pretty cool.
outside of a couple noticeable sequences that we would have liked to see that were for some reason in trailers and then not in the final film, the movie was pretty good and is pretty widely beloved. So
except for by my parents.
Well, that'd be the only
my parents go, oh, the movie where my parents, my uncle, a lot of my family members actually go, oh, the movie where everyone dies? Yeah, great movie.
that is the only negative that I've seen is that it's a Star Wars movie you don't necessarily want to show to kids. And not that any of your family has like the mental capacity of children. That's not what I'm saying. But just that it is not a light, bright, good time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I monologued about it to death all over the place, mostly coherently, we hope. But Zach, what's your takeaways from this?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited. I think Mangold was at one point attached to a bounty hunter movie.
It was a Boba Fett.
Yeah, Boba Fett movie. So I'm excited that he's finally getting his chance to do some Star Wars, which, he seems to have wanted to do for a long time. I'm really excited to see what this movie's going to be. If it doesn't start out or have Octo in it, I might be a little bit mad. I just want to see like more of that, I want to see old huts. I want to see, because even in Octo, it's very primitive. Like, I want to see primitive Star Wars, maybe not even have a lightsaber in it. Maybe it's sticks, maybe it's katana, maybe it's, wooden katana style thing. I want to see sword and board, to take a fantasy term, in Star Wars, low magic, low force, low, yes, you're going to have some of it, but if it's the dawn of the Jedi, it's not like, oh, everybody can use the force, and now we're just, making a church. Get Jedi, let's build this Jedi church. But I have a lot of faith in Mangold, and I'm excited to see what this movie is.
Well, right on. Well, real quick, one thing based off of what you just said, I hadn't really thought about this till right now. We're probably going to see Octo at some point in this movie, especially because they've called it the First Jedi Temple. It's probably going to be revealed as the First Jedi Temple, but with the two movies being referenced previously by Mangold and Lucasfilm as kind of examples of what this is going to be, Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, they both take place in the desert. So hear me out. Here's some wild speculation for a movie that may or may not come out in 2 years.
Starts on Tatooine. No.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me, because the aesthetic of Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments is the desert, middle of nowhere. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was Tatooine. It would annoy everybody. But what if it is a different desert planet, and then either we end the movie arriving on Octo, setting up the temple, or this is where it's going to get wild. It is a desert planet that then by the end of it is teeming with life again, and there's oceans and mountains and all this stuff, and then it is revealed to be called Octo.
Yeah.
So there's just some wild, like as the Force kind of awakens to unintentionally reference something as it explodes and the Jedi Order begins, they create life, and they take this planet from a desert wasteland into ocean.
Yeah.
I don't want to say paradise, but it sounds good. So into an ocean paradise.
Cool.
There's some wild speculation that probably won't take place.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in the next piece of news, this was something that I had heard previously, but I thought it was really, really cool. So, celebrating the 25 years of Star Wars Episode 1, StarWars.com has posted several interviews this year with lesser-known Star Wars luminaries that got to work on that film. But Ian McKeag, the concept designer or concept artist who responsible for many things, one of which being Darth Maul, the final look of Darth Maul, he talked about a kind of a twist ending for Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn that was originally considered by George Lucas. And so the quote is from Mr. McKeag. For a time, the older Jedi was named Obi-Wan, and the younger Jedi was named Qui-Gon. It was very poignant that at the end, as Obi-Wan dies and Qui-Gon defeats Darth Maul and stays with his master as he passes away, he not only takes on his master's quest, but he takes on his name. Qui-Gon becomes Obi-Wan. That's why when you see Alec Guinness in A New Hope, he puts his hood down and goes, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan. That's a name I've not heard. Because he's not Obi-Wan, he's Qui-Gon. And then right at the end, George changed it. So I'm pretty sure right at the end he means probably right before shooting. Because when I read that quote, I was sitting here running through the movie. I was like, is there ever a time, like, did they go through most of the movie not mentioning their names? But yeah, I had heard about this somewhere on the internet, I believe from Sam Witwer years ago. But to now see it confirmed by StarWars.com, I was like, oh, that's really cool. But Zach, what are your takeaways here?
Yeah, I love the idea as a concept. You know, George has thought about doing this a couple of times, or at least Mark Hamill has. You know, originally Mark pitched that the end of Return of the Jedi was taking off the mask and putting it on and being like, I am Darth Vader now. You know, so the taking over a moniker is really cool. I think as a fandom, it would have gotten real confusing. You know, and be like, okay, so, like, who's your favorite? Well, I like Obi-Wan. Well, which one? Oh, okay, so I like not Alec Guinness, not you know, Ewan McGregor. I like Liam Neeson Obi-Wan. You know, I think Liam Neeson Obi-Wan was really, you know, OG Obi-Wan. You know, like, I think just like from a fan point, I'm really glad that it didn't happen, because then you're not like, okay, so Qui-Gon, the original Qui-Gon, no, the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon, or Obi-Wan, or old Obi-Wan, you know.
Yeah.
I think it would have got little confusing. As a concept, I think it's you know, kind of nice though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool idea. It's one of those ideas that I think he probably, this is me acting like I've spoken to George Lucas about this personally, but it strikes me as the idea hit him when he was rewatching the original trilogy, and just like, I wonder if that's a moment I could make something else out of, just the way Alec Guinness just acts so well in that moment when he hears Obi-Wan. It was probably George realizing in some degree, that would be really weird if everyone's calling him Obi-Wan right up to the original trilogy, which is ultimately what we got, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But just to make something more out of it. But I think it would have been confusing to have to write it in that way, where then everyone would be calling him probably Qui-Gon, but the name that he claims is Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Right? So that then in that moment, when he's talking to Luke, it's right. I'm not just going to take care of this kid. I'm going to restart that quest that I failed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it could also be, it could have been something where he chose the name Obi-Wan, kept it up until he failed, and Anakin became Darth Vader, and then he's like, my name's Qui-Gon. You know, but yeah, that would make it kind of clunky and... Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Ben Kenobi.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Well, either way. But yeah, it also, the biggest reason that I think this is legitimately real is that it is very philosophically interesting, very like kind of themed and meaningful, and also kind of clunky and confusing and starts to fall apart when you think about it, which, as much as I love him, this is a George Lucas idea.
Yeah.
It is. You know, the internet loves to just treat him like he's Jesus now. But, you know, the dude is brilliant, and his ideas are strange.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But come on the podcast, George.
Yeah, you guys been trashing me?
We don't. We love you. I won't do my impression as we're saying this. Okay, so do you want to take this next one? This is news Matt is very, very freaking out about.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. So according to StarWars.com, Charles Sewell, Matt's favorite comic book writer, is gonna write a new comic called The Legacy of Vader, set in between Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, kind of talking about, Kylo dealing with his struggles of being Kylo and, killing his dad and his master, and, he goes to Mustafar as well in this. So, Matt, what are you're chomping at the bit, so go ahead.
You want to know my takeaway?
Yeah,
You want to know my takeaway? Get ready, Nate. Let's go. That's my takeaway. I am here for this comic.
Yeah.
I've said it on the show before that my favorite Star Wars comic run, hands down, it's not even a discussion, is the Charles Soule Darth Vader comic book. Mm-hmm. It begins picking up immediately after the moment in Star Wars Episode 3 when he's just put the suit on. And it starts with him saying no. People misconstrued it as like a rewrite of the no, but it's that he has clearly just like collapsed after that and said no. And you pick it up in that moment, and then the last moment of the comic is Vader saying yes. Mm-hmm. It's cheesy, and it makes more sense than that, but that comic is the story of Vader becoming Vader. This comic is the story of Kylo becoming who he is at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker. You can say that it's a fault of the films, right? That not all the movies are consistent, and it is. But like at the end of The Last Jedi, he has lost everything. Yeah. Literally everything he ever had. He has lost the people that actually love him, his family, right? And he lost the person he chose over them, Snoke, because he killed him. Right? And then he was like, I got something else. I'm going to do it for Rey. And then he lost her too. He has nothing while also having all of the power and all of the authority as he has become essentially the Emperor because of the vacuum that this machine of the First Order created. And so they said that he's going to go to Vader's castle. They said that he's, like you said, he's going to be dealing with the legacy of Vader, as is the name of the comic. If you are on the fence about Star Wars comics, and I get it, if you're like, it's kid stuff, I cannot recommend Charles Soule enough. I would wager that the writing will reference other things, but will not depend upon you knowing other things.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm here to finally start getting the slow drip of content, filling in areas in the sequels.
Yeah.
There are holes in those stories, but it's like that in every Star Wars trilogy, right? So let's start to continue to just add more fun adventures in the gaps. So I went on and on and on and on, but we will be reacting monthly, guarantee it, because when this comes out, it will be the first thing that I do on Wednesday mornings. I'll be like, great, let's read this with some coffee. And then I'll freak out all week waiting to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, Zach, if you can't tell, I'm excited.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about this?
I don't think I'm as excited as you are, but I think it's going to be a fun comic. I'm down for anything with Mustafar and, Vader's castle and all of that. Especially with the stuff that Soule has done with the Vader's castle and the lore and it being over, kind of a force. It's essentially a force like tuning fork for the dark side, if I remember correctly. So I'm down for it. It'll be cool. Hopefully this will explain how he rebuilds his helmet and why, because I think that's a big misstep in between the two movies that they can explain a little bit. But yeah, it looks beautiful. The art for it is really beautiful. The few pages that we've got look great, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Yes. All that to say, yes, I am very, very hyped for this. I hope it made any sense, my level of hype, but every time Charles Soule writes something, it makes other stories in Star Wars better for me. And I like that he is the guy that they are kind of trusting to flesh out Kylo Ren. He wrote The Rise of Kylo Ren miniseries. And now he's getting to write what when they say it's an ongoing, if you don't know, that means there is not a set ending date to this comic. It could go for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? Probably not. I think the Vader one only went for...
It was like 5 or 6 books.
I think it was only like... Yeah, like 5-6 issue things.
Yeah.
I think there's like 25 issues.
Yeah.
So it's only a little over 2 years. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm very, very curious... the biggest thing that this will for sure affect is the beginning of the Rise of Skywalker, that opening sequence.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know, when Kylo is in the burned out woods slicing down random people that never show up before or after, he is on Mustafar because the planet is healing. It is regrowing life. That's because from the here's another canon shout out. It's because of the events in the Star Wars VR game Vader Immortal.
Yeah.
You as the player character, you kind of begin to heal Mustafar. What were you gonna say?
No. I was gonna say I wonder how they're gonna if that game is going to affect this comic and how all that is gonna work.
Yeah. Well, and then of course there is a deleted scene from the Rise of Skywalker where he encounters this weird, it's not really spidery, it's more crabby, but this weird monster called the Eye of Webbish Bog.
Yeah.
It's the typical fantasy story of just, the person that's on a quest or something has to encounter an oracle that's going to warn them about the journey they're going on, and the Eye of Webbish Bog is what gives Kylo the Wayfinder. They cut it out for pacing and whatever, and I mean there's enough random things in that movie, but I'm wondering if they're gonna put that in this book.
Maybe.
If that's where it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's all the news. Let's throw it real quick to our interview for the week with Sawyerism. She is a fantastic person, loves Star Wars and wants to create an inclusive environment for all Star Wars fans.
Yes, everything that we're looking forward to do with the podcast, she already does, of inclusivity, positivity, and let's throw it over to the interview.
Okay, and it's time to welcome onto the show Sawyerism, one of the most positive, fun, energetic people that I have encountered in the Star Wars community. Let's give a warm welcome from all corners of this galaxy. So how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Zach and I have talked about it's something that I've seen you say in at least one of your videos on TikTok, that you're trying to create a positive and inclusive space in this Star Wars fandom, because sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, but we're here for the positivity and the good faith takes and all those types of things. So so all that to say, thank you for doing what you're doing. We think it's awesome.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Right on. Okay, so we're going to dive straight into this interview template. Listeners at home know this is the same one that we use for everybody until we come up with something different. But, so, for this first question, Sawyer, where were you when you first saw Star Wars, or what is your first Star Wars memory?
So, I kind of have like a two-part answer to this question, because I don't remember the exact, pinpoint time in my life where I was first introduced to Star Wars, and I don't know which movie I saw first, but I was growing up when the prequels were coming out. And I was very much a tomboy, so Star Wars and Thomas the Train and all those things. And I remember distinctly when Revenge of the Sith came out, I wasn't allowed to see it because my mom was so terrified of the first ever PG-13 Star Wars movie. Oh no! And so I remember that she called her friend who had seen it in theaters, and we got the VHS tape, and then she would fast forward through the dark parts of the movie. So that was the first time I watched Revenge of the Sith, and then it was probably 15 years after that I went back and watched it all the way through. So there's that, and then that same year I broke my arm right before my birthday party, so my mom scrambled together this Star Wars. I was supposed to have a pool party because I have a summer birthday, and instead my mom threw together this huge Star Wars party for me, and we had Wookiee cookies and Yoda soda, and there was a Star Wars cookbook that we used that I remember very fondly, and I think I still have the invitation to that party somewhere. So that's my answer.
That's awesome.
I got so excited by the puns of Wookiee cookie and Yoda soda. I don't know why, but I've never heard those before.
It's it's one of the Star Wars cookbooks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that your mom's not creative. I'm sure she could have come up with those puns on her
No,
own, but
she so used the cookbook. I can't remember what it's called, though.
that's awesome. Well, let's face it. Pool party or Star Wars party? Star Wars party. Star Wars party is probably the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Or a Star Wars pool party. Yes.
Ooh.
We, growing up, my stepmom made pool noodles as lightsabers. You wrap tape around the bottom, and then you attack, so that way you could do Star Wars in the pool. All right. Next question. Who is your favorite Star Wars hero?
Oh, my favorite Star Wars hero. The first characters I jumped to, I realize are not heroes.
Well, we'll get your villain answer in on the next one.
Great. Gosh. My favorite Star Wars hero is probably Rey.
Cool.
I have always been a Star Wars fan, but the sequels were... I think there was something about growing up, or I guess I was, almost an adult by the time the sequels came out, but I was a conscious person at that time, and there was something really special about being able to go see a Star Wars movie in the theater for the first time. And so if it weren't for the sequels, then I wouldn't have ever gotten into content or became the religious Star Wars fan that I am today. So I would say probably Rey. If not Rey, then Leia.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Great answer.
Right on. We love both of them. They're some of my favorites as well. But okay, so now the flip side. You said you were jumping towards villains initially. Who is your favorite villain?
I'm gonna have to say probably Osha Anastasia from The Acolyte.
Cool. Ooh,
we
and
both
you view
nod.
her as a villain.
Well, that's the thing. I immediately thought of her, and I was like, wait a second, she's not a hero.
I see the awesome Chimere art behind you, and I was instantly like, yes.
Oh, wait, you can't see it anymore. Can I? There it is.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. I got two of them right there.
Yeah.
Big Acolyte fans over here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Renew the Acolyte.
Right on. So what draws you to Osha in particular?
So I read her character very much as neurodivergent, and I don't know if that was a choice as that Amanda Stenberg took into consideration. I believe Amanda Stenberg is neurodivergent, but I myself have had a really interesting journey learning that I'm autistic this year, and I just haven't resonated with a character that way before, and so when I finally made that connection, I was like, oh, wait, okay, her story of emotional repression, and a lot of people were calling her emotionless rather, and I was like, no, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of the journey that I have struggled with in the way that I express my feelings, and also that feminine rage I think is portrayed so phenomenally. So yeah, I just really the longer the time went on, the more I was just enamored with her character and really felt seen by that character.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's awesome. That's part of why we like the show so much on this podcast. So much of Star Wars has been, let's face it, made by people that look like Zach and me. And I love Star Wars, always have, always will, but I think it can only be made better by new viewpoints and new perspectives. That's really cool. I never would have thought of seeing that in that character. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
Well, now to go a little silly. Sorry,
Whoa.
excuse me. Now to go a little silly. Who is your favorite random alien and/or background character?
I forgot that this was a question. I remember reading it the first time and going, oh, because I don't have my action figure over here. That my favorite character, my favorite alien, Glup Shido, is, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the 80s television show Star Wars Droids.
We actually haven't. It's a blind spot. We're going to rectify that eventually.
But when I was a kid, my mom would rent the VHS tapes of this show from the library for us. And there was this one specific one she rented a couple of times. And it was about this prince from a far off planet that got captured and put it like stuffed in a robot costume and sold as a droid. And there's this scene where like there's someone from his planet who comes to rescue him, and he realizes that he's found the guy because he's been unmasked and whatever, and he's like, Manjulba, which is his name. But I just thought that was the funniest thing as a kid. And then when I started making content, I realized that there was an action figure of Manjulba, the prince, and a fan bought it for me, which was really nice. So yeah, it's him. I love him.
That's so cool. We love the deep cut answers. That's the best way to do it.
You might have just convinced me to watch Droids. So
it's so silly.
Yeah, this is like the second or third time that we've heard someone on the show mention droids, and now we're like, all right, this has got to happen. We will do it. We're throwing the hammer down now. It's gonna happen. But okay,
it doesn't take very long. It's like 2 seasons.
Perfect. That sounds perfect. Well, it's old school like 20-minute or so episodes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Love
I
it.
miss 20-minute episodes, honestly.
Yeah, everybody's always like, well, and then you get the fans that are like, why is this episode so short? But neither here nor there. Okay, Sawyer, if you had a Jedi weapon, if you had a lightsaber, what color would it be?
Purple.
Ooh.
Cool. Why?
Yeah, it's my favorite color.
Nice.
I used to say red. Like, I used to be so, like, I'm a Sith and blah, blah, blah. And then I grew up and I was like, nah, that's not. Or I think, it's part that and part so many people that get to know me are like, you're so nice and you're so that. And, like, there's no way you'd be a Sith. And then I had to do some introspection and go, oh, okay, yeah, no, I don't want to be a bad guy. And then there's things like watching Andor and things like that, where you really, really, you don't want to be the bad guy. So.
What do you mean? The bad guys are totally likable on Andor. That was a joke. I was joking. Okay.
All right. So, if you could have, or if you already have, a Star Wars tattoo, what would it be?
So, technically I have 2.
Nice.
Cool.
One of them I've been trying to get removed or covered up for
okay.
personal reasons, but also it's just a bad tattoo. And everything about that experience I should not have gone in and done. Like, the guy was very much, I think he flat out said to me, like, I hate women, and I still let him tattoo me.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I was 18 and young and stupid, and that was a very bad mistake. And so the next time that I got a tattoo, I was like, okay, I have to make sure it's exactly what I want and that it's by somebody who knows what they're doing. Yeah. And so I ended up getting TIE fighters in a very, like, micro-realism, like, single needle tattoo. Like, it's basically a very, very fancy stick and poke.
Cool.
That's hyper realistic on my hips. So that is my Star Wars tattoo. But I really want to get that same style in Chimere's helmet.
Cool.
From the Acolyte. Yeah.
Right on.
I love that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite just visuals from the Acolyte. I saw that helmet for the first time and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. And finding out that it was a sensory deprivation helmet still, like, just fires me up and I think is cool.
Yeah.
But, alrighty. So, in or out of universe, what is your favorite Star Wars story?
Oh. Oh. That's a good question. Out of universe, my favorite Star Wars stories are the things that I've seen this fandom achieve, I think. For instance, my podcast co-host and I, we raised over $3,000 for a charity that we were really, that was really personal to us over the summer during Pride Month. And in that same, over this past summer, I was a part of 3 different campaigns that raised upwards of anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 for these different charities.
Cool.
And it was all just Star Wars fans coming together and doing good things, and so those are my favorite like out of universe stories. In universe story though, I think honestly broadly the High Republic.
Cool.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have not read a lot of the High Republic, and Matt has read a lot but has kind of fallen off. But can you pitch me the High Republic and why I should read it then?
Oh gosh.
Not to put you on
It's
the
hard because I don't know you, but
Or like, what do you love about it? Like, what about it,
well, first of
draws
all, someone recently said to me that they didn't like the Jedi, so they thought that the High Republic wasn't for them. And I would say that that's the complete opposite of the truth, because this series is absolutely for people who are skeptical of the Jedi because of the prequels. If you have any sort of, I don't want to say resentment, that's not the right word, but if you have any sort of hesitation that the Jedi were doing the right thing or that the Jedi were in the right, the High Republic is the golden age of the Republic, but also the golden age of the Jedi. And if you could imagine an entire order full of Qui-Gon Jinns, that's what the High Republic is. And so, for me, coming from someone who grew up with the prequels but was angry with the Jedi, it was a fresh take, and it made me. I think honestly, the High Republic is also part of the reason why I stopped being like, "Oh, I'm a Sith." Like, so yeah. I mean, I think, and there's just something so special about Star Wars books in general that bring the universe to life in a completely fresh way, and I think especially with the High Republic, the audiobooks are fully performed and they have soundtracks and everything like that. But yeah, I think it's just a really phenomenal era, and what they did with it, with the one team of writers who just collaborated on the entire project together. And the passion that they have for it as well. If you go to the publishing panels at the Comic-Cons and stuff, and they're all such lovely people. So that's my pitch.
Right on. Well, and I wanted to specify, fantastic pitch, but I wanted to specify I didn't fall off because I didn't like it. I have loved everything that I've read. Life just took over.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then I was 3 books behind before I knew what happened. And I was like, oh. And so I think I'm just going to wait for it to end, and then we'll reread the whole thing. But I love that in particular, it's a Jedi Order full of Qui-Gon Jinns. We've gone on and on about how we stand Qui-Gon Jinn on this podcast. But no, yeah, that's awesome. But so all of it is your favorite Star Wars story.
Yeah, because it is a collective story, start to finish. And I would even include the Acolyte in that, because that is the end of the High Republic era. And I think that show follows the same theme of trying something very different within the Star Wars universe. And also, it is a flawed show, but what I think what it executed best was the characters, and I think that's true for the rest of the High Republic as well. All of the characters, even the characters that you only spend a couple of pages with, are fleshed out to a point where you find yourself caring about them and what happens to them. So I think that extends to the Acolyte as well.
Yeah. Well, to take a quick tangent off of that, how did you feel about the way Vernestra Rowe was characterized on the Acolyte? Yeah. Just curious, because I found myself just kind of confused, like everybody at first.
Yeah, I mean, it was at first a little confusing, but I think when you put into perspective all the things that she's been through, and her story in that era is not done yet, so there are other possibilities as to what happened there. I don't think it was a malinformed choice. I think there's a reason for that, and I think we'll see some of that in the Acolyte tie-in novel that comes out next May, I think. And I think we'll see that as Phase 3 wraps up, because we don't know how it's going to end, and Charles Soule has teased that it's not going to end great for everybody. But I think he described the last book as a tornado that resolves itself at like the last 5 pages. So I am nervous, but I think it makes sense for the trauma that she's endured. and probably the same thing that we've seen in a lot of different Jedi, where, similar to like Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, there's a pause when you make a mistake that large that makes you, I think whatever happened with Vernestra probably largely has to do with what happened with Chimera as her Padawan.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake that large, you freeze up. And, to me, she probably went back to the foundation of, like, word for word what the Jedi texts were saying. And, I have to be rigid. I have to be, because I messed up,
No, that makes sense. That's a good call. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
It was like I want some insight into that, but cool.
All right. So, we've talked a lot about it. Just to kind of sum it all up, what does Star Wars mean to you?
Oh, gosh.
Heavy question. Big question.
These are hard hitting. Yeah. Star Wars is really just about hope. I know that's a pretty common answer, but I think that there's not a lot. When I think of my favorite franchises, that theme isn't always as present in the way that it is in Star Wars. There's something about the thread of hope in the Star Wars universe that resonates pretty profoundly with me in, like, the real world. And it's, something to keep you going. I think the message is really inspiring. And like I said, my favorite Star Wars stories from the real world are the Star Wars fans coming together and doing things like raising money for charity. I think that thread of hope from Luke's original journey, I think that inspired all of us, mostly a lot of us when we were children, and that has shaped in a way who we are as people today. And I think that that's really beautiful. And yeah, so that's more of a profound answer. It's also just, my favorite thing ever. So
Same.
Yeah. No, it's been my favorite thing since longer than I can remember. And then part of why I stuck with it as an adult was just like what you said, like the hope of it all. And just, referencing earlier on the show when we had Paul Hyde on the podcast, shout out, friend of the podcast. He was an original trilogy fan. Saw the first one when he was 6 years old in the theater, and he talked about how it sounds cheesy, but the ideas of the Force connecting everybody, your actions have consequences, hope, redemption, all those things. He said he thinks that it really affected how kids from the 80s looked at life. So I think that we're not alone in hope and Star Wars impacting everything about who we are in many ways. So, okay. Sawyer, thank you for coming on the show. We're not done. It is now time for the ridiculous Rathtar trivia question, where this is intentionally a preposterous question, right? So there's no shame. Either way you win, because it's either you get this ridiculous question right, or it is proved that, like, you have a life and stuff. Because one way or another, everybody wins this question. Okay, so very, very specific here. In Solo, A Star Wars Story, in the first Sabacc game, okay, what ship does Han Solo bluff Lando that he owns?
I don't know.
To be fair, that came from my little brother suggested this question. I was like, that sounds preposterous. Okay, let's do it.
And I also was like, what?
I think I had... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's so funny. The last time I was in a trivia tournament, I got second place, and the only... I insist that the only reason I got second place was because the guy I was competing against, he got, like, 6 solo questions in a row, and that was his, like, movie of choice. And I was like, this isn't fair. What is happening?
What is this? All right, so the ship was the model of the Ghost from Rebels. It's
you
like
know
that
what?
model
I was
number.
gonna say the Ghost.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, that doesn't check out in the timeline. It's not the Ghost. Dang, I should have gone
We'll
with
count
my...
it. We'll count that as a win. He says VCX 800, and I remember sitting in the theater going, and the whole row of people that I was with was like, what is that? I'm like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I know what it is, but it's fine. Okay. Well, all that to say, Thank you very much for coming on the shore. On the shore? My lord. Thank you for coming on the show, Sawyer. It was very nice to meet you. I know it's weird to come on the show when you have no idea who we are, but no, we really appreciate it. And just to wrap up, where can the people find you if they don't know who you are already?
Yeah, well, you can find me on pretty much any social media that exists. We got TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, all the things, and it's all the same username. It's Sawyeurism, Sawyeurism, and I make all kinds of crazy content. I made a Family Guy video the other day for some reason.
I saw that. I was like, oh, stepping out of the comfort zone.
I was recording an episode of my podcast, and we were talking about how TikTok is just not the platform that it used to be, and it's just no telling how you can blow up on that For You page anymore. And so I was like, yeah, I could just rank the Family Guy cast, and they were like, do it. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do it because I've been watching Family Guy. Like, that's my depression show, unfortunately. So but anyway, yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah,
absolutely Thank you. We really appreciate it. And I don't know, eventually we'll do some type of collaboration because we've had, we'll be open to it. We've had several other, really only one other creator on the show so far at this point, but others are coming. But thank you. We're still a teeny, tiny little podcast at this point, but we're going to have an open door policy for everybody that wants to come and wants to share good faith Star Wars takes.
Yeah.
But that being said, Zach, you got something else?
Oh, no, just thank you so much for coming on. You know, it really means a lot. Like Matt said, we are a tiny podcast, so thank you for, taking the chance.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Alrighty. Yeah. And thank you for coming on the show, Sawyer, and we're going to throw it back to the main podcast. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Thank you again, Sawyer, for coming on the show. We had a great time talking to you. And, Zach, we're running low on time, so let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm at Zachisfaction on most social media, but the best way to find me is by emailing the show, forceofothersradio@gmail.com, or getting in the comments of any of our TikToks, YouTubes, Instagrams. We respond, so comment at us. Matt, where can they find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Matt Beutner, Bew with a Tner on the end, Beutner. You can also talk to me basically on the Force of Others Twitter, because that is almost exclusively me.
Yeah.
But all right, and just remember, as you move on with your week, we hope is a good one, and remember, the Force of Others will be with you.
Always. The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.